Hello everyone, this is part 14 of What If Naruto Got Rid of the Kyuubi, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Be sure to like and subscribe, it gives me more motivation. Enjoy. The Hokage had just sat down in his hotel room after the exams when the door knocked and he sighed and went to the door and opened it and saw Naruto standing there with a smile on his face. Naruto said, "Sorry to disturb you Hokage-sama, but something very big is happening and I need you and the clan heads to meet me in the private party room of the hotel as soon as possible." The Hokage asked, "What's going on Naruto?" in a commanding voice. Naruto said, "I was given orders not to inform you or anyone until you arrived and the Rasenkage was specific about this. That's all I can say. Please trust me, it's important. Also I was asked to give you this," as he handed the Hokage a scroll and went up in smoke. The Hokage sighed and said, "He was always a problem child. Neko, you go inform the clan heads," to the Anbu who was guarding his door as he closed it while getting ready himself, but first he opened the scroll and read. "I don't have much time to explain. When everything is started to explain, act like you know what's going on and agree with the host of the meeting. You will get the real story privately later." Naruto blinked and said, "All right, the old man's on his way here with the stiff NS. So what exactly are you planning?" as he looked at Minato. Arashi said, "Dad, why do you and Mom look so young?" Naruto looked at his son and Kushina said, "It's because you Mom and Dad are young Arashi. Your grandpa will explain it all when the guest gets here, okay?" Arashi sighed as he scratched the back of his head and said, "Okay, so that means for me to sit down and be quiet, right Mom?" Kurenai said, "Yes son. Don't say anything and if you are a good boy I will make you some ramen later." 3.21. Ramen, came the shout of Arashi. Kurenai shot a look at Naruto who sheepishly rubbed the back of his head and said, "Don't look at me like that. He just has good taste in food." Kushina shot a look at Minato and he rubbed his head and said, "Hey, it's not my fault that they took after me. I never had anything to do about it." Kushina said, "You passed on the ramen gene you barker. My threat still stands." Minato said, "Well too bad for you, I'm going with Naruto when he leaves," smiling. Naruto said, "Huh," as he looked at his father. Kushina said, "You still have to pay up when you return." Minato said, "Damn," as he shook his head. Yugito groaned and sat up on the table and asked, "What happened?" Gaara said, "I did as promised and everyone now believes you are S and Nibi is still inside of you. The seal has been fixed and added to also," in his normal calm voice. Yugito rubbed her head and said, "It feels like I was hit with a sledgehammer." Gaara said, "No, just a brick. Somehow it was in the shushin with you when you arrived here and knocked you out," as he shot a look at Kurenai who looked sheepish realizing she forgot to pick that brick up. Naruto looked at Kurenai and said, "That reminds me, where the hell did you keep that thing anyways? I know your weapons pouch did not have it in it since I made sure you had the Hiraishin on you." Kurenai said, "Secret and don't look in my stuff without asking," with a smile on her face. Naruto sighed and said, "At least you're not as bad as Tenten, that girl I swear is a walking weapon shop. Looks like they're coming," as he looked toward the door. Gaara said, "Yugito, whatever is said here go along with it and don't answer any questions about how they are alive. Say you don't know so no one else knows about your ability to bring the S back." Yugito nods and sits down in a chair looking around as the door opened and the Hokage walked in followed by the clan heads, Itachi, and Kakashi who all stopped when they saw Minato standing there. Before anyone had a chance to say anything Minato said, "Come in, close the door, sit down and shut up and I will explain how I'm back alive and what's going on," as he released a large amount of Ki on everyone and Naruto and Gaara thought, "So that's how you deal with clan heads." As everyone came in Itachi saw Yugito and asked, "What about her? I thought she SD in the exams," pointing to Yugito. Kushina said, "She defected and now a ninja of Whirlpool and an ally so don't worry about her," in a commanding voice. The third looked over at her and got wide-eyed when he saw Arashi and knew exactly who he was from Naruto memories. He thought, what the hell is going on? Minato sighed after everyone sat down and said, "All right, I first want to say it's good to see you all, agent, but this is not a social meeting. Less than a year ago we arrived and I informed the Hokage and told him to keep it quiet. I also gave him information about what is going to happen soon. Now you are all probably asking how I know what is going to happen. Well, the truth is I was not revived less than a year ago. I would not have been revived for around 10 years from now. Truth is Iwa got a hold of some of Orochimaru forbidden jutsu and messed around with it because they decided to try and resurrect me and my wife here to help stop Naruto, who was decimating their forces in the got the resurrection part right, but they screwed up and never realized how to make it where we would follow their orders, so we were revived, and as soon as they told us what to do we killed them and destroyed all their research and went to Konoha. Sadly by that time Konoha had been destroyed, but we were able to find the survivors in Suna, making everyone gasp. Chooser asked, how was the leaf destroyed? Inoki asked, how was Naruto decimating the forces? Minato said, originally we were betrayed by Danzo and Root, who not only gave out the location of some of our more advanced fighters but also neutralized all the village's traps. It was his way of getting revenge on the village for not electing him Hokage. That was why I gave the Hokage information to help eliminate him by setting up traps to prove he was doing illegal stuff. I also convinced the Hokage to let Naruto start training in all his clan jutsu early so he could maybe help us get prepared, which by what I saw was a brilliant move. As for how he decimated them with the Hiraishin, Yugito rolled her eyes and thought, he sure has them eating out of his hands with this bulls. Nibi said, yes, but at least we won't have to resurrect anyone else to play along. Naruto smiles as everyone looks at him and thought, remind me never to play poker with him. His poker face is perfect. Makes me almost believe his story. Minato said, anyways, long story short, the Hokage got her hands on a forbidden jutsu that allowed people to go back in time. Only problem was that if you were alive at the time you went back to, then both you and the person that was originally there would cancel each other out, and so the choices of who could come back were limited. It was because of this Kushina and I were elected to come back and try to help. It is also the fact we really had no key information to try and second guess ourselves in the war that we were selected. The little boy there is actually my grandson. He is the child of Naruto and Kurenai. He was also selected to come back and I was given 5 scrolls to give to people from their future selves. Each one had bits and pieces of memories to help with a few jutsu to aid in battle and also to accept Arashi there as members of our family here, since he has not yet actually been born and his parents wanted him to have a chance to live a real life and not on the run from hunting Iwa groups. He does have the Uzumaki bloodlines as well as trace amounts of Kyuubi chakra, which is why he has red tips on his hair. Now I don't know anything about the jutsu, and all the jutsu the 5 people were given had been screened so not to give too much information and destroy the chance we have to save our villages. Now does anyone have any questions? Inoki asked, who were the 5 people who got scrolls? Shibi asked, why screen what information comes back and also choose someone who does not know what happens? Itachi said, it's simple really if you think about it. If someone had all the knowledge of the future, they most likely would not adapt to situation changes, like we no longer can be betrayed by Danzo since HS, thus making most information useless. Minato said, correct Uchiha. Naruto, Kurenai, Gaara, Kankuro, and Temari are the ones who had sent their scrolls back with us. Each were beneficial to the survival of the rest of the people who were still alive, so much so that if any one of them SD we would have been wiped out. Hyash said, you said her when you said Hokage. Who is the next Hokage? Minato said, Tsunade, though how and why I was never told. Shibi asked, are you going to become Hokage agent? Minato said, why should I? Almost no one in the village listened to my request, so why should I lead them? Ironic, the one person who basically saved most of the villages is the one they tried to kill and abuse most of his life, making all of the clan heads wince. The Hokage said, well, I'm glad that I don't have to keep you presence silence any longer. So what is going to happen now, Judium? Naruto Winston said, well, since I only recently found out my parents are alive, and I have a son now, I don't know. I was planning to go and get the other member of the Uzumaki clan so I can awaken my second bloodline. I still need to get to her and fast because of a related topic, but my original plans don't seem to be a good idea. Chum asked, what do you mean Judium, Hokage-sama? Naruto said, I was recently approached by survivors of Whirlpool like the Hokage had planned so I could get him to join Konoha. They however requested me as the strongest, known, shooting a look at his mom, Uzumaki alive to take up the position as the Duodime Raisenkage. I ran it by the Hokage and both him and the Kazekage agreed to back me. Hiash asked, if you're the Raisenkage who was that in the cage's booth? Naruto chuckled and did 3 hand seals and said, Kazabunshin no Jutsu, and a wind clone appeared dressed in the cage robes making everyone understand and Naruto said, the best way to draw attention away from something is to publicly prove it's not related. That reminds me, I need to go piss the Raikage off some more so I can get the Forbidden Scroll, as he rubbed his chin. Arashi said, Mom, was Dad always an idiot? Making Naruto grumble and everyone else snicker. Naruto said, no son, I just like making people mad because they make mistakes when they are mad. Arashi nods and said, is there anything to eat? I'm hungry. Temari said, come on Arashi, I will fix you some ramen. Kurenai shot Temari a look and said, no ramen. Temari said, fine, dango it is. Arashi smiled and followed after her but stopped and looked at Anko before pointing a finger and said, I don't believe it, you're not going commando, making Kurenai put her hand over her son's mouth and Temari blush. Naruto sweet drops and said, my son's a pervert. Anko said, I like you kid. Look me up in a few years, as she looked at them leave hurriedly. Anko looked around and saw everyone was looking at her and she smirked and said, I'm single. Arashi stopped and turned and asked, is there any girls my age around here? Making everyone look at him out of. Naruto said, yes, why son? Arashi looked and saw Kakashi and started doing hand signs making everyone look at him and said, inside out, what yours is mine no jutsu, and suddenly a puff of smoke appeared and Arashi was now holding a mask just like Kakashi and he put it on and said, all right, I'm ready to leave. Kurenai blinked and asked, what was that for son? Arashi said, I don't want fangirls agents so I thought I would pull an Uncle Kakashi, as he walked out the door. Kakashi reached his face and said, he took my second mask. H is good though I wonder if I should warn him the mask actually draws fangirls. Minato shook his head and said, so does anyone else have any questions? Naruto said, yeah I do. What did you mean when you said you were going with me? Kushina said, you may be strong as a Junin Naruto but you're still only one person and I will not have you go off by yourself. Naruto said, don't I outrank you? After all you're technically not even a ninja right now, with a smirk. Suddenly the room dropped several degrees as Kushina stood and started to stalk Naruto while rolling up her shirt sleeve and Naruto suddenly stood stiff and his eyes changed to gold and his voice changed and said, it's good to see you aging child, stopping Kushina before she could teach Naruto a lesson. Kushina said, Diavan, is that you? The Hokage asked, what's going on? Naruto said, sorry for interrupting your meeting and fun but I noticed that since Kushina has been brought back to life my daughter I gave her was not with her also. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Diavan, Queen of the Dragons and companion to the Uzumaki family. Kushina bowed and said, it is an honor to meet you Agent Diavan, I thought you would never take a companion. May I ask why you have chosen my son? Naruto said, I chose him for my own reason. Now give me your hand so I can replace my daughter who was lost, as Naruto held out his hand. Kushina shook it and winced a moment as a small dragon appeared on her arm shocking everyone and Naruto said, it is still young and will not be able to aid you in battle for 1 year but after that you will be good. I will have to give one also to the youngling as well since I have already given one to the boys here mates. I'm sure you remember all of our abilities. Kushina said, yes, I remember all of them. Thank you for honoring me Ajin, as she bowed to Naruto. Naruto closed his eyes and swayed a little and said, damn dragon, can't she ask just once before she takes over? The third looked at Naruto and said, please explain. Kushina said, it's a long story but basically our family has fought side by side with the dragons since before the demon wars over 400 years ago and because of our relationship with them it actually caused our bloodlines. We have kept the location of the dragons hidden and I only mentioned it in one of the scrolls one left Naruto. I never imagined he would have went and passed the test. He didn't in the future but it might have been also for the fact he never got most of his family scrolls because of what happened. Hiash asked, what test? Naruto said, the dragons have you sit and they examine your soul. I don't remember the actual test, but if you pass, a dragon merges with you like she did with me. If you fail, they eat you. Simple as that. Everyone looked at him stunned. Naruto said, well, I guess now that everyone knows what's going on, this meeting can end. Catch. As he tossed a whirlpool headband to Yugito. Yugito caught it and Naruto said, I will get a room ready for you, but I am putting a seal on the door until we leave. You may have defected, but I am going to keep an eye on you until I am sure you are completely trustworthy. As he turned and left, Gaara walked over and said, you can come with me, Yugito. I will make sure you arrive to your room for some rest. As he turned and leads her out of the room with his brother accompanying him. The Hokage waited until they left and said, now listen. I am making a new law. No one is to tell about the whole time travel thing. I want you all to say that Their revival is all part of a Namikaze clan jutsu, since I am sure if they do have any information they won't tell anyone outside of Their family. I also want the boy Arashi to be protected as well as Naruto, two fiancés. When word gets out about Minato and Kushina return, Iwa may try and kill them, which would involve Konoha. However, I believe that if something were to happen to the boy or either of the girls caused by someone from Konoha, we won't have to worry about Iwa, because the Namikaze clan will destroy Konoha and would probably have the aid of Suna as well as Whirlpool, since they have already started to gather agent, and the one girl is the daughter of the Kazekage himself. Does everyone understand? Itachi said, I already told Naruto-sama this, but I will say it again. Because of the efforts of the Namikaze clan in protecting my clan from the traitor Uchiha Madara, we swear our protection to them. If anyone goes against them, they go against the Uchiha clan. As clan heir, I invoke my rights as the next leader of my clan. Shikaku thought, just as I expected. The Namikaze clan is now in position to not only fill the void left by Danzo but also surpass it. Whoever gain them as political allies will be able to rule the council. The question is how to gain them as allies. Going through Naruto will be impossible, since he most likely has some degree of hate for what the village has done to him. Going through Minato and Kushina is definitely not an option, as both are cage-level shinobi who know what's at stake. Naruto fiancés are also out, since one is the daughter of a Kage and the other must have some understanding of Naruto to be unaffected by the announcement of the Kyuubi and also her reaction to suddenly becoming a mother. The only link that someone has would be the boy. The problem is how to gain him without going against his parents and grandparents. Similar thoughts were going through the heads of the other clan leaders. One thing was for sure, the future of Konoha was about to take a backstage to the Namikaze clan. Naruto walked into his room and sat down on his bed. He sighed to himself as he thought about all that has happened. He won at the Chunin exams, and now not only is his parents alive, which is just creepy for him, but also his son, who he was sure he would never get to see again. Now he has to decide what to do about it, since he was going to miss Temari and Kurenai, but now he is also going to miss his son. Life sucked sometimes. Naruto was about to close his eyes when a knock came on his door. He got up and went to the door and saw Kurenai and Temari standing there with Arashi, Minato, and Kushina. Naruto smiled and said, come on in, as he stepped aside. As they walked in and sat down in different spots, Naruto closed the door and put up a privacy jutsu and said, so how's everyone doing, with a smile on his face. Temari said, stop acting like nothing's wrong. We all saw the way you acted back there and know something is bothering you, so spill it. Naruto sat down and asked, am I really that transparent? Arashi said, yeah dad, you are. Naruto smiled a little and said, I'm just scared is all. I mean, I lost both you and your mom once already, Arashi, and now I finally have my parents as well as Temari-chan and Kurenai-chan, and I'm scared of losing you all again. I have dreamed of being able to finally talk to my parents, and now that they're in the room here, I don't have a clue as to what to say or do. Kushina looked at her son sadly and said, perhaps we should all start getting to know each other better. I mean, we are going to be a family now, so we might as well get to know each other like a family should. That reminds me. Come here. I got something for you. Naruto did not sense anything wrong, so he walked over to his mom, who was fiddling with something in her pocket, and he asked, what is it? Kushina moved faster than he had time to react and grabbed his ear, twisting it, getting a scream from him, and she said, now listen here, little boy. I don't care if you are almost as old as I am mentally. You will not try and pull rank on me. I brought you into this world and I sure as hell can take you out. Do you understand me, Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze? in a mother's you're in deep-s voice. Naruto said, yes, I'm sorry, as he tried to get away. Kushina said, good, and let him go, and he started to rub his ear. Minato smiled and said, well, let's get to know each other now. Naruto nods and they begin talking. The next day Naruto stretched and looked down and saw his son in a bed across from him sleeping peacefully with Kurenai beside him. He smiled to himself and started to get ready for the day when the door knocked. Naruto groaned and walked to the door. When he opened it he saw his father standing there, who said, the Hokage wants to see us. Naruto said, probably wants the truth. Minato said, no, I already told that. He said he will play along. He wants to talk about what's to happen now. Finish getting dressed and Kushina will be here in a minute to watch Arashi with Kurenai. Naruto nods and turns to finish getting ready as Minato comes in and closes the door. A little bit later, as Naruto comes out of the bathroom, he sees both Kushina and Kurenai sitting at the table in his hotel room, and Minato said, come on, you can talk when we get back, as he walks toward the door. Naruto follows him out the door, shooting one more glance at his family. They soon make it to the Hokage's room and the Anbu let them in. The Hokage was at a small desk, and after the door was closed the Hokage said, now that all three of you are here we can discuss your mission. Naruto looked over and saw Itachi and he asked, what mission, Hokage-sama? The Hokage said, have you gotten any information on the location of the last Uzumaki not currently with Konoha? Naruto said, yes, she is currently in Mist. I have a plan to try and track her down, but there is a problem. The Hokage asked, what exactly is the problem? Naruto said, it's a three-way race to find her first. Akatsuki and Orochimaru will both be looking for her. Itachi asked, why? Naruto said, currently Orochimaru has the power of the Yamato no Orochi, but it's sealed away until he can get the soul. The soul is currently sealed in her. If Orochimaru can get her to touch the grass cutter, he will be able to use Yamato no Orochi power. My sources don't know if he is still with Akatsuki or not right now, so I am just assuming he is still looking after his own self right now. The Hokage nods and said, any idea on how to find her? Naruto said, I was thinking of hiring a couple of guides who know the land and won't betray us to the authorities there. A Satian demon, if you will. Itachi shook his head and said, you really have a thing about demons, don't you, Naruto-sama? Naruto smiled and said, when you live in hell, get to know the locals, making everyone snicker at the comedy of the situation. The third said, right, well, I have decided that Kushina did bring up a good point yesterday when she said you are still young. I know what you're going to say, Naruto, but with the threat coming I need you alive and able to fight, so I am going to send Minato and Itachi with you. Naruto was silent a moment and said, Yugito also coming? Itachi asked, why her? Naruto said, look, she defected, but I want to make sure she is loyal before I put her anywhere near Konoha or my family. Besides, I don't want another Jinchuriki in Konoha without anyone to help her fit in. You should know as well as I do what that is like, Weasel, referring to his Anbu mask. Itachi said, I thought you were going to K the Nibi. Naruto said, I was until it was pointed out to me that another superpower could aid us in the times to come, and with 3 Jinchurikis as allies we have a good chance to save Konoha, so the future my family is from don't happen. I know another way to K it if she does not show she is trustworthy, though it will be a little harder than the original way I planned. Itachi asked, how do you know it will work? Naruto said, I've done it before to another Jinchuriki. It just happened to be to a lesser demon than the Biju 9, and he was a little disturbed, as he looked bored, though he knew the truth was a bit different. The Hokage sighed and said, very well, when can you leave? Naruto was quite a moment and asked, when do you plan to return to Konoha? The third said, probably tomorrow. Why? Naruto said, we will leave right after you do. I want to spend a little more time with my fiancés and my new son, as well as getting to know my parents, as he looked at Minato. The Hokage nods and said, very well. I have also had a request from the Kazekage to take his children with us to Konoha. Naruto narrowed his eyes and asked, why is that? The Hokage said, he said it was because he did not want to split them up and make it easier for them to settle in when you marry Temari, but the truth I believe is that he is afraid of them. They show more loyalty to you than they do him, and that's understandable considering the truth. Itachi said, I'm sorry Hokage-sama, but I must ask, why is everyone lying about what is really going on here? The Hokage looked at Itachi and asked, "What do you mean, Itachi?" Itachi said, "Sir, something else is going on here between Naruto, yourself, Kakashi, Kurenai, Anko, and the three children of the Kazekage." Naruto asked, "What makes you say that, Itachi?" Itachi said, "Well, when I look at you all with the Sharingan, it's like I see a double for some reason. I can't explain it. I know that Minato, Kushina and the boy don't have it, but the others do, so it has to be something else. You already know I won't tell because you can K me in an instant with that seal, but I don't like being left out of the loop." Naruto closed his eyes and the Hokage said, "I see. Do you think anyone else in your family would notice these changes, Itachi?" Itachi said, "No, only reason I can is because of my condition, drawing everyone's attention." Naruto closed his eyes and said, "What condition?" as he looked at him. Itachi said, "My family made me go through a special ritual when I was younger to make me stronger faster. It had a side effect to make my Sharingan mutate and become stronger than the others in my family." Naruto looked at Itachi and said, "I support your decision, old man." The Hokage was silent a moment and said, "Itachi, what I am about to tell you is not to ever be repeated ever to anyone. This is a secret that is so big it could literally destroy every nation in the world. Do you understand?" Itachi said, "Yes, sir." The Hokage said, "The reason is this. Remember the story Minato told you yesterday about coming from the future? The truth is each of us were also from the future. From when and where I won't tell you, but we have been using the knowledge we have to try and save our village. All I will tell you is that Konoha fell, your family was completely wiped out. Suna was pretty much destroyed and we only have one chance to make this work. We can't tell everyone about it. The day Konoha fell, Naruto here was supposed to be sworn in as the Rokudaime Hokage. That is why I give him so much free reign and why he is now the new Rasenkage. What you describe is most likely a mental projection of what we really looked like. I can't tell you anything else because we have already changed most of our history, but we have a few leads still to work on. We can't use the jutsu we came back with again, and we won't tell anyone where it came from or how to use it, because if word got out our enemies could use it to destroy us, undoing everything we are trying to, you understand?" Itachi was silent a moment and said, "I understand, Hokage-sama, and thank you for informing me." Naruto said, "Itachi, do you have any problem with working with us now?" Itachi said, "No, sir, Naruto-sama." Naruto sighed and said, "Itachi, just call me Naruto. I hate formalities." Itachi said, "Yes, Naruto-kun." Naruto smirked to himself, remembering Itachi's future self always called him that, and said, "I do have one thing to tell you that you need to watch for, Itachi. This is important." Itachi asked, "What is it?" Naruto said, "Your brother, you must try and humble him when you can. His future self became delusional in his family name and believed because he is an Uchiha that he is automatically better than everyone and does not need anyone and would do anything to get power to K the person who destroyed his clan, even try to K his best friend and betray Konoha to our enemies. We each got a second chance now, but we have to use it wisely." Itachi was silent and said, "I understand, so he wished to K me for destroying our clan after Madara tricked me. Is that what happened?" Naruto said, "Yes. I see the title of genius was not given to you for you fighting skills only. Yes, after that he did anything for power, and when Orochimaru came and gave him a curse seal he left Konoha, but not before trying to K his best friend by driving a Chidori in his chest." Itachi narrowed his eyes and said, "I see. Kakashi was assigned as his teacher, and honoring Obito he focused on Sasuke by teaching him his signature jutsu, and since you said try to K means whoever he used it on survived, and so the only person who could survive a direct assassination jutsu would be someone with super fast healing, meaning you." Naruto sighed and said, "Yes. In the end when he left the village to join Orochimaru he and I fought at the Valley of the End. Him with a level 2 curse seal and me using Kyuubi chakra. Since I refused to K him he ended up beating me and made it to Orochimaru. He was my best friend and closest thing I had to a brother. I may not be his friend this time around yet, but I hope that I can be, and I will do everything I can to keep him from going down that path. Agent Itachi. Can I count on your help?" Itachi said, "Yes, Rokudaime-sama." Naruto slapped his head and said, "I give up," and Uchiha with a sense of humor, as he looked at Itachi, who smirked. The Hokage smirked as well and said, "All right, you still have time before that time, Naruto, but still we have other things to worry about. I have another mission for the four of you. It is an S-rank mission and is to begin in almost 3 months. Minato asked, what is it? The Hokage said, I want you three to track down and eliminate Orochimaru. At this everyone stiffened and Naruto said, I accept, making both men look at him. Minato said, Naruto, you can't just think this is a fight against a genin. He is one of the Sannin and you do have skills but you're not up to your future self yet. Naruto said, I know, I am well aware of the danger but it is a mission that must be completed as he is too dangerous a threat to stay out there. Especially with his immortality jutsu and his resurrection jutsu. The Hokage said, I know that this is a dangerous mission but it is something that has to be done. Just then an explosion rocked the entire village interrupting the Hokage and Naruto said, what the hell? Not even a second later a swirl of sand appeared in the room and Gaara was there and he said, we got trouble. Ignoring everyone Naruto asked, what's going on? Gaara said, looks like you pissed Pain off big time because the entire Rain army is currently about a mile away from the front of the village. That blast just now was SDRA. Naruto groaned and said, who else in Akatsuki is here with him? Gaara said, all of them, making Naruto and the Hokage wide-eyed. Naruto narrowed his eyes and asked, how big an army we looking at? A moment later another swirl of sand appeared and Temari was standing there panting and heard the last of the question and she said, it's bad, I say we got around 600 nins approaching the outside walls. The Hokage asked in a commanding voice, what's the Kazekage doing? Temari said, the explosion was the Kazekage tower. Naruto closed his eyes and said, Gaara, evacuate everyone in the village through the tunnels. Gaara said, it will take time to get everyone going now, especially with my father's death. Naruto said, just get the tunnels open, I will take care of everything else. He turned to the Hokage and said, old man, get everyone you can and head toward the north end of the village grabbing all the civilians you can. Look for the sandstorm and follow Gaara. He can get you all out of here. I will hold him off as long as I can. Minato said, I'm coming with you, as he went toward Naruto. Naruto said, no, you are to take our family to Konoha Dad. Please don't argue with me, as he left in a swirl of flames. Gaara said, I will get busy with the tunnel, Temari get everyone you can, we are leaving the village. May we seek sanctuary in Konoha? The Hokage said, yes but it will be up to your next Kazekage to decide what to do. Gaara said, then I will be the next Kazekage, as he left in a swirl of sand. Itachi turned to the Hokage and asked, what are your orders, sir? The Hokage looked down and said, you have your orders, evacuate everyone you can to where they instructed, as he started grabbing his things he could. Minato left to get the others and Itachi started notifying all of the Leaf Ninja. Temari left in a swirl of sand and appeared in her room grabbing a scroll and unsealed her weapons as she quickly left to find Naruto and thought, you're not immortal Naruto-kun. Naruto appeared on the wall in front of the Rain Ninja in a swirl of flames and one of them said, look, someone's finally came out. Naruto saw that all of the ninja of Suna were currently inside the village trying to help everyone from the explosion except for a few guards that were now Naruto had a pretty good guess as to what happened but he looked and saw the army and saw Gaara had created a barrier to block the entrance to aid Suna defenses. He figured Gaara must have also seen that their guards had been killed and thought, well let's see, Hebatum, Pain, Konan, Madara, Zetsu, Kisame, Hiden, Kakazu, Deidara, Sasori and around 600 Junins total. Just great and it will take Gaara an hour to get those people out of here in those tunnels. Naruto reached into his vest and pulled a scroll out and unsealed some kunais and threw one and started to run around the village confusing the Rain Nins who were all looking to Pain as they approached the village to see what he was going to do. Pain narrowed his eyes and he looked at the person appear a moment before in a swirl of sand on the wall that they were approaching and said, Deidara, stop him from running and bring him here. H is the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. Naruto ignored him as he continued to run around the village throwing kunais out into the desert as well as dropping some on top and SDRA jumped back up onto his clay bird which took flight and started to chase after Naruto who was already 3 out of 4 of the way around the village walls at this point and SDRA reached his hand into his pouch pulling out some clay and had it take the shape of a bird and had it fly toward Naruto. Naruto finally made it to the last section of the village walls when he saw the bird coming and he quickly made hand signs and said, Sealing Art, Shield of Light, and sent a chakra pulse out which hit one kunia that he threw, and it caused a shield to pop up and go to the next kunia and the next, and so on and so forth, as it made a white shield around the village of Suna. Naruto had just finished and quickly put his arms in front of his face when the bird exploded in front of him, blowing him backwards toward the village, only for Naruto to be caught by Temari, who was riding her fan in mid-air, and said, "Next time, dodge," as she landed the fan on the ground hard, knocking the wind out of both of them. Naruto's arms were burned and his cloths looked like hell, but other than that he was okay. He winced as he moved his arms and said, "Hopefully there won't be a next time." Just then the Hokage ran up with all of the Konoha nins, and Naruto asked, "What are you guys doing here?" "I said you all need to meet Gaara at the tunnels." The Hokage said, "Naruto, you have not taken my job yet, sir. I am still in charge, and besides, Gaara has everyone already heading there." Naruto looked at Temari and she said, "Him and Kankuro stopped by the council chamber Ked and now H is the new Kazekage, and that they were evacuating the village and to have all ninjas start gathering, everyone moving to where the tunnels are." Flashback. In the council chambers, they council members were screaming, "What should we do? The Kazekage S, the village is about to be attacked. The gate guards are S." Gaara and Kankuro appeared in a swirl of sand and Gaara screamed, "Silence," drawing everyone attention. A council member said, "What are you doing here, Demo?" Sand suddenly covered him and Gaara squeezed his hand, causing him to explode in a rain of blood. Gaara said, "Now, my father is S, as is everyone who was in the Kazekage. I am taking over as Kazekage. If you have a problem with it, you will join him. Do we understand each other?" They all looked at each other and another council member said, "I would rather S than follow you." Gaara said, "As you wish. Only for a spear of sand to shoot out and L the man in the heart." Gaara said, "Anyone else?" When he saw no one else going to say anything, Gaara said, "Currently are not prepared to fight this army, especially with all of our VIPs still here from the exams yesterday. I have already received an offer of sanctuary in Konoha, and we have secured the means to escape through underground tunnels that I will open up in the north of the village. Each of you are to spread word to all of our forces to gather all the civilians and our men and to bring them to the north end of the village where they will find me. Protect the civilians and VIPs at all cost. Now go before I lose my patience." Faster than you could blink, all the council members ran out and Kankuro said, "You still got it, brother." Gaara said, "Aid them and pass word along," as he left in a swirl of sand and Kankuro ran out to help spread the word. End flashback. Naruto nods and winces as an Anbu walks over and starts to heal his arms, and the Hokage asked, "What's the exact situation, Naruto?" Naruto said, "I put a ceiling shield up that draws off of my chakra. Nothing can get in or out of the village above ground or over the top of the village, since I dropped some on top of the wall as well until I cancel it or run out of chakra, but every time they attack the shield it weakens me. I can already feel them trying to take it down." Outside the wall, Pain said, "Alright, I want you all to start hitting this shield until it comes down. I want this village destroyed. Remember what I told you all." The Rain Nins said, "Yes, Lord Pain-sama." Flashback. Pain looked at the Genin team and said, "Why have you returned so soon from Suna? Did you fail?" Thea Junin instructor said, "No, Lord Pain. It was my decision to draw our teams back when we heard Namikaze talking about you, sir, and about your plans being ruined." Pain hit a button on his desk and Madara walked in along with Conan, and Pain said, "What exactly happened and who is this Namikaze you spoke of?" The Junin said, "His name is Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. He is a Whirlpool ninja." Conan said, "Whirlpool was destroyed during the last war." The Junin said, "Nevertheless he was representing them and the Kazekage even acknowledge him as a Whirlpool ninja." Pain said, "Very well, continue." The Junin said, "Well, Pain-sama, he said that he knew you and that you would not be happy when you learned someone was destroying your plan to capture the tailed demons." At this all three members of Akatsuki stiffened and Pain said, "Continue." The Junin said, "He claimed he had information someone knows how to destroy your Renegan bloodline and was going to destroy each of the tailed demons before you got a hold of them from the Jinchuriki without killing them, and he even said you were not the leader but someone called Uchiha Madara." Madara, who was acting as Toby, said, "Who did he say was going to stop Pain-sama plans?" The Junin said, "He said the person was Madara Pet and he was a Jinchuriki also who." He was silenced as Conan had the papers on the desk in front of them fly at the Genins and the Junins that were with them, king them by cutting their heads off. Madara said, "We must stop the Kyuubi vessel. He has too much information on us." Pain said, I agree. It's disturbing that he told everyone about my bloodline. How do you think we should do it? Madara said, eliminate as many witnesses to this as possible. We must eliminate sooner. Pain said, very well, Conan, call a meeting of all our ninja. Conan nods and turns into thousands of sheets of paper to spread the word. 2 hours later everyone was standing in front of a huge wall and Pain stepped out and the people cheered to Tyr, God, and Pain said, people of rain. Recently the people of Suna have angered me by speaking blasphemy against me and my power questioning me. I wish to send a message to the people of Suna and the rest of the world. It's time we show them the power of the chosen. Who will follow me to destroy Suna? The people cheered and Pain said, prepare for war. We will attack the day after the Chunin exams finals. Now go, as he went back into the cave that disappeared after he walked in. End flashback. Hiash activated his eyes and asked, how long do you think we have? As he looked at the army. Naruto was quite a moment and said, currently I say 30 minutes if I can find some soldier pills since it's taking a lot of my power to keep it up right now, however they are not using any heavy jutsu yet on the shield and all the heavy hitters are letting the grunts do the work it feels like, as he looked back toward where he could sense the army. The Hokage looked in thought a moment and said, what exactly are these tunnels, Naruto? Temari said, they are underground tunnels that once fed water to our village that have long since dried up. Gaara found them once when we were younger. They travel nearly the entire desert all the way to the border of Fire Country. The Hokage said, all right, I want everyone to prepare for combat. We need to buy these people time to evacuate. Naruto said, no, you all need to get to the cave entrance and help move the people along when Gaara gets it open. I can buy you all time but you need to move and have Gaara seal it off after you all get inside, as he stood up. The Hokage said, Naruto, you are going to follow my orders, in a commanding voice. Naruto closed his eyes and said, forgive me Hokage-sama but your place is to lead you ninja to safety and not waste them on AS run. The moment that shield drops they are going to come with everything they got and sweep over this village like a storm. None of you will make a difference in that as we have been caught off guard too badly. Konoha has to be warned about the new threat as well as getting the council to let these people stay in the Fire Country since they can't come back for who knows how long. Don't forget we have a lot of VIPs here right now also. Let me deal with this, please, as his voice came out calm and collected. Minato looked at his son and Kushina said, no you're not Naruto, you have a family. She was shut up when Naruto released enough ki to freeze everyone and he said, I am doing this for my family. I'm the only one here who has half a chance to escape once that shield drops outside of the tunnels. Anyone else will s. The one thing I have learned how to do well in my life is to survive, so please don't make this any harder than it has to be. Go. Arashi looked at his dad and said, but dad. Naruto's eyes softened and said, no but son. I have to do this, as he took off his cloak and handed it to his father and then his sword and handed it to his mother. Kushina looked at it and Naruto said, it's don't feel right to me. It's not meant for me, as he looked at her. The Hokage thought a moment and said, what are your odds? Naruto was silent a moment and said, it depends on if they still want the Kyuubi or they want me as he turned and started to walk toward the gates. Anachi said, why do you insist we will not survive if we help? Naruto stopped and said, because I don't want any of your children to see their fathers or mothers in front of them. As he walked to the walls in front of him and pulled out a kunia, subbing it into his hand and left it there as everyone looked at him as the blood started to run down his hand on the ground. The Hokage sighed and said, Naruto, if you escape send word to Konoha and return as soon as possible. Naruto said, fine, as he started to use the blood and draw seals on the wall. Minato sighed and said, there's no talking him out of it. Let's go. Arashi looked around and saw Temari and ran over to her and hit her in the arm, getting her attention, and she looked at him and he motioned for her to bend over. Temari bent over and Arashi whispered in her ear and Temari blinked and asked, why would you want to know if there is a flower shop here in Suna at a time like this? Naruto stopped without looking back and said, no Arashi, do not use that. Arashi said, I will if I have to dad. After all, didn't you say that you can only find true strength when you wish to protect something that is precious to you? As he smirked as Naruto turned around and said, that's low son. The third asked, what are you both talking about? Naruto said, Arashi. Arashi is able to use the Shodime's bloodline, making everyone looked at the boy. Arashi said, so, does this place have any flower shops? Naruto phased out of view where he was and appeared behind Arashi and said, sorry, as he chopped him on the back of the end, knocking him out. He picked up Arashi from where he fell and handed him to Kurenai, who was looking at the ground, and Naruto said, now please go. I want S. It's a promise. As he walked back over to the wall he was drawing a seal on. He drew 2 more lines and said, done, as he pulled the kunai out of his hand, allowing it to heal, and he put his hand on the seal and sent chakra into it, and suddenly water started to shoot out of the wall at high speed, forcing everyone to jump back. Naruto jumped away and the Hokage said, we got no choice. He is set to do this on his own and H is right. We do need to worry about the people of Suna and the VIPs. Let's go. As they all jumped away, the third looked at Naruto fleeing form and said, and the wall of fire spreads from one generation to the next to save the great tree that is Konoha. Unknown to him, all the clan heads heard him and had to admit to themselves that it was true. Naruto was willing to sacrifice his life to save people. It was at that moment the ones who still had doubt about him and the Kyuubi lost all hate forever. Temari took to the roof, jumping beside Kurenai and Arashi, and said, he will make it back. Kurenai said, I know. He promised and he never goes back on his word. Temari said, that's his Nindo. Minato smiled and dropped down from the rooftop they were leaping on, only to leap back up a moment later, and Kushina asked, what was that about Minato? Minato said, nothing, dear. Let's go and have a little faith in our son, as he smiled a small smile. Kushina narrowed her eyes and said, I blame you for his rebel ways. Minato said, don't look at me, that's an Uzumaki trait, as he jumped away to keep from being hit by his wife. Itachi looked at Minato as he jumped away, and quickly he fell down an alleyway as well, only to jump back up. Anko saw this and asked, what's happened to you, Itachi? Itachi said, I thought I heard someone in the alley but I did not see anyone. Kakashi smiled to himself and the Hokage said, let's go, I think the people of Suna have already mostly been gathered in the time we were arguing with Naruto. Keep an eye out for stragglers, but let's hurry. Naruto was sitting on a roof when 2 people landed behind him and he said, what are you both doing here? Itachi said, my honor demands I help to protect you from this enemy. Minato said, besides, nobody knows we're gone. Naruto sighed and said, let me guess. Kijibunshin. Itachi pulled out a soldier pill and handed it to Naruto and said, yes. Naruto nods and puts the pill in his mouth, eating it, and stood up and said, well, I guess that's a good thing, so what do you think? That pill will only give me another 10 minutes at most before I will have to drop the shield. After that I only can fight in Taijutsu mostly unless I take another pill. Minato said, it's a good thing I took this then, as he pulled out a case that had 3 pills in it and made Naruto go wide. Naruto said, those are Akamaki family pills, Dad. Minato said, yes, and normal chakra pills don't do really anything for you, so that's why I borrowed them. Here. As he handed them to Naruto, don't take more than the first pill. Naruto looked at it and said, right. So what do you have for weapons? Minato put the cloak he had in his arms on and said, just my jutsu. Nothing else. Naruto reached to the back of his vest and pulled out a solid black scroll and he said, here, Thea, all uncoded, as he tossed it to his father. Minato got wide-eyed and said, I see, how many you got? Naruto said, on me 24, in that scroll, 275. Just code them with the master seal and you can use them. Minato nods and opens the scroll and Itachi asked, what is that? Naruto said, Hiraishin. Minato saw the master seal in the middle of the scroll and bit his thumb, wiping the blood across the seal, and all the smaller seals all started to glow before they turned back black. He then unsealed around 25, putting them in his holster, and put the scroll in his coat. Itachi watched this and said, so what's the plan? Naruto pulled another scroll off, taking his shirt, vest and shoes off before he unsealed some new cloths which had a black shirt, and black combat high-top shoes. He slipped a kunai in the back of the shoes and then sent chakra to the shoe, and a blade came out of the fronts of both. He then slipped the shirt on and wiped some blood across where his heart should be, and it glowed before it shifted, and some seals glowed before it went black back into the shirt where you would never tell they were there. He then slipped his vest back on, biting his thumb agent, and rubbed the spiral on his hand and said, release, as he cracked his N from side to side and said, basically we kick ass and take names. Force them to draw attention to us and not worry about getting into the village. Avoid the guys with black cloaks and red clouds on them since they're all the S-rank ninjas. Itachi looked at Minato and he said, sounds like a good plan. Take out the grunts and then get the hell out of the sandbox, so to speak. Naruto and Minato looked at each other and burst out laughing, and Naruto said, it's official. I can get used to having you around. Minato said, how the hell did you keep your sense of humor with your family rules, Itachi? Itachi said, oh, I just don't act like this around my family, so they never tried to teach me to be a drone, as a true smile came to his face. Naruto said, well I never knew an Uchiha could actually smile. I always thought they were stuck with a smirk, as he added his own true smile. Itachi said, so Naruto, if you were going to be the Rokudaime, I'm sure they must have had a cool name for you. What was it? Naruto said, oh, I had one and I will show you what it was very soon. Now let's get ready, the shield will be dropping in about 5 minutes, as he started to walk toward the front gate. Minato said, this should be fun, as he followed Naruto on his left. Itachi said, HN, as he followed Naruto on the right. As they made it to the top of the wall, the shield wall started to shimmer. Naruto put his hands in a ram seal and said, release, sending a chakra shockwave out to hit the closest kunai, and the shield collapsed completely. Back with Gaara, he was moving more sand out of the way as an already 100 feet tunnel appeared, but he had yet to actually reach the actual tunnel when he saw the sky above the village shimmer as the shield dropped, and he said, S. He then took a deep breath and said in a loud voice, attention everyone. The protective shield is down, all shinobi please prepare for an attack. The tunnel is only another 20 feet away, so I need about 10 more minutes. Protect all the civilians and VIP. Once I say go, everyone should proceed through the tunnel as fast as possible. He then looked over to Chum and said, hey, do you have any of your family soldier pills? Chum said, yes, why? Gaara said, I need one so I can hurry this up since I'm running low on chakra. Chum looked at him a moment and said, all right, as she pulled one out and put it into his mouth, and he swallowed it and continued bringing 30-foot walls of sand out of the tunnel. The Hokage looked back at where he could feel Naruto and thought, good luck Naruto. Kurenai looked down as a tear fell down her face, and Arashi said, Dad will be okay. I know it. Minato said, of course he will. I'm watching his back, as he went up in smoke, making everyone wide-eyed. Itachi said, as am I, as he went up in smoke. Kushina said, God damn that idiot. I am going to castrate him when I see him again. Back with the three heroes. As the shield dropped, Pain said, everyone, attack the village quickly. Leave no survivors. All the rain nins cheered and said, by the will of God, as they charged toward the village. Naruto saw them charging and put the pill in his mouth and swallowed as the chakra exploded off of him, and he put his hands together and said, Tajukijbunshin no Jutsu, as the wall was suddenly lined with around 1,000 Kijbunshins that all leaped off the wall going through hand signs and said, Kamitachi, as thousands of blades of winds appeared and headed toward the now charging army. Some of the rain nins used earth jutsu, others used wind attacks, and a few used straight chakra attacks or hid behind massive weapons as the blades hit. Some of them were shocked at the new one-man army facing them and did not realize the danger until it was too late, as they started to receive damage or even death depending where they were hit. Itachi whistled and said, damn. The real Naruto said, that's why I was called the Kazekami, as he jumped down to head toward the army that his clones had now engaged. Minato said, oh hell no, H is not going to beat me, as he pulled off the scroll Naruto gave him and went through some hand signs and finished and said, Haration, Rising Kunia Storm, as the scroll shot into the air over the battlefield before it started to spin and kunais started to fly out of it toward the ground. As the last one finished falling, the scroll burned up and Minato said, Sire, on the flip side, as he disappeared in a yellow flash to appear on the field with a Rasengan in each hand, driving one into an enemy and then disappear, appearing by another, hitting him with a Rasengan as he already formed another when he first appeared, and kept this going. Orochimaru saw this and said, it can't be. H is S, as he saw Minato. Pain said, everyone prepare to counter-attack once the last flash stops. Orochimaru summoned the grass cutter out of his mouth and held it in his hand. Hiden said, I will sacrifice him to my god. Itachi, who was still on the wall, started to do hand signs as he jumped down, activating his Sharingan, and said, Firestyle, Phoenix Fireball Jutsu, as he shot out around 30 heading into different directions. A rain ninja pulled an umbrella off his back, throwing it into the air, and started doing handans and said, Rain of 1,000 needles, as the umbrella started to spin and shoot senbon needles down onto the army, taking out a lot of Kyuubi and his fellow rain ninjas. Naruto saw his and looked around and saw several of the rain nins had umbrellas like him, and he started doing hand sign and using the water he had shoot out earlier inside the village, said, Hidden mist no jutsu, as the entire area was suddenly covered in mist. Itachi saw the mist coming and he jumped out of the general area where the fighting was. Minato was still flashing around hitting people with Razingans when the mist rolled in, and he thought, good idea, son. He appeared at the last of his Kuniyas and said, S, as he dodged a sword swipe from Orochimaru. Minato rolled and stood up and asked, how did you know where I would be, Orochimaru? Orochimaru said, I knew to follow the last Kuniya that came down, and I waited for you to appear to try and KO you, as he charged Minato with his sword, making Minato block it with a kunai. Orochimaru chuckled and said, so, you don't have anything else on you besides those Kuniyas, huh? A voice behind him said, that's all I need, Hebatum, making Orochimaru jump as a Kyuubi took a swipe with a sword he took off of AS Ninja, and Minato said, you're not the first to realize that, Orochimaru, sir. I learned when I got to my last 5 to go and create a Kyuubi as backup. Orochimaru bit his thumb, wiping blood on a tattoo as he went through some hand signs and slammed them on the ground, and a giant snake appeared and he was standing on its head and said, eat that, man. The snake charged toward Minato, who caught the sword from his Kyuubi as his Kyuubi charged the snake as it started to glow before it exploded, killing the snake and returning it to the summon world. Orochimaru said, you will pay for that, as he charged Minato, who threw a kunai at Orochimaru, who caught it before realizing what it was, and Minato appeared in front of him and drove his sword into Orochimaru's stomach but had to dodge the swipe from Grasscutter. Orochimaru pulled the sword out of his stomach and chuckled as he opened his mouth, and a hand shot out of it and then his whole body came out of it as he said, little tricks like that won't defeat me, as he charged Minato, still with Grasscutter and the other sword now. Minato thought, forgot he could shed his skin, as he dodged out of the way. A little ways away from Orochimaru and Minato, Kisame was swinging his sword, King Kyuubi after Kyuubi. The real Naruto frowned and quickly went through hand signs and create a Kazabunchen and sent it toward Kisame as he kept going through the rest of the Rain Ninja. The Kazabunchen charged toward Kisame, who said, well, I have to say you guys are beginning to get on my nerves, as he swung the sword at the Kazabunchen, who turned into wind a moment as the sword went through it and then punched Kisame in the face, shocking him. Kisame put Samad on his shoulder as he rubbed his nose and said, that was a neat trick. How did you do it? The Kazabunchen said, fight me hand to hand and I will tell you. Kisame asked, why should I? A Kyuubi appeared behind Kisame and exploded, flinging Kisame toward the Kazabunchen, who started to spin and said, Kase Baku, as it exploded and wind chakra burst out from its body, slicing Kisame in several places. Kisame hit the ground as another Kyuubi came running at him, and he put his sword in front of him onto to feel 2 sets of hands grab him and pull him underground. A few moments later, the spot where he disappeared at exploded, flying him into the air. Itachi had been waiting for the right moment to return to the fight when, after several explosions, he saw a man with blue skin fly out of the mist into the air. Taking a page out of his sensei's book, he charged into the mist and jumped into the air to appear behind Kisame and started to punch him in the back and arms with a kunai around as he said, dynamic action, following Kisame as he fell back into the mist, with Itachi landing on his back, driving him into the sand more. Kisame swung his sword around trying to KO Itachi but only nicked him, and Itachi jumped back as he felt the chakra being sucked out of him. Kisame stood up slowly, panting and coughing up blood, and said, I will KO you. Itachi took his kunai and wrapped an exploding tag around it, and faster than Kisame could see, Itachi appeared behind him and said, Konoha's secret Taijutsu, 1,000 years of death, as he shoved the kunai in Kisame's ass as he jumped backward. Kisame dropped his sword and jumped, holding his ass as he screamed, and Itachi put his finger in a ram seal and the kunai exploded, blowing Kisame all over the field. He then looked at the body and said, what the hell? Where Kisame's body should have been was now some poor rain ninja. Somewhere off away from the battle, a man jumped up and said, when I meet that red-eyed bastard, I am going to shave every inch off his ass for that. Back in the battlefield, Itachi had little time to wonder what was going on when suddenly an explosion came from inside Suna direction and Diavan said, "They're inside the tunnel," and sealed the cave off. And Naruto said the man in front of him with a kunai as he bit his thumb and started going through hand signs and slammed them on the ground as a cloud of smoke rose from the mist and Gambunta was seen standing there. Gambunta said, "What's going on here?" as Naruto stood on his head. Naruto said, "I need out of here, boss, but we got 2 others coming with us." Suddenly another puff of smoke came out of the mist and a giant raven could be seen and Itachi was standing on its head and Naruto said, "Itachi, take dad and go. I will meet you back in Konoha." Minato, hearing Gambunta voice, jumped into the air and saw Gambunta and charged toward where he was, leaving Orochimaru who was following, but the moment Orochimaru saw Gambunta he went through the summoning jutsu agent and was smirking and said as he rose from the mist, "Let's K that frog Manda." A cough from below him drew Orochimaru attention and he got wide-eyed and the snake said, "F you bastard. None of the snakes like you or your experiments on us, and since Manda S and the snakes don't follow you any longer." As he went up in smoke, making Orochimaru fall back into the mist onto a bed of the senbons that had been used to take out some of the Kyuubi King him. In a clearing several miles away, Orochimaru arose and started to curse as the snake tattoo on his arm started to burn away and he said, "I will K whoever is responsible for this." Minato landed on Gambunta head and Itachi said, "Sorry but Po here won't let anyone else ride him. Meet you in Konoha," as he flew into the air on the raven's back. Naruto sighed and said, "Right, boss, get us out of here," as he sent a mental command to each of his Kyuubi who was still fighting in the mist. Gambunta jumped away from the fighting, getting hit a few times but nothing serious, and when he was about 200 yards away the Kyuubi all exploded, blowing away the last of the mist, and suddenly a huge salamander slammed into the side of Gambunta, throwing Naruto and Minato off. Gambunta slowly started to stand up and pulled his sword, and Naruto got into a fighting stance as the summon went for Gambunta, and Naruto said, "Leave boss, hurry." Gambunta remembered hearing about this creature, listened to Naruto and went up in smoke. The salamander faded away and Pain was seen standing there. Diavan said in Naruto head, "Grab your father and tell him to hold on quickly, child." Naruto did not think but acted and quickly grabbed his father, and before he had a chance to say anything both were gone in a yellow flash. They both appeared in a dark tunnel with green lights moving around them, and both suddenly felt themselves being attacked by different people. Minato looked and saw his wife crying on his chest holding him, and he quickly hugged her while trying to figure out how the hell they got here. Naruto, who was currently on his back being held down by vines from the ground with his son on his stomach sitting on him, and both Kurenai and Temari holding on to him for dear life. Naruto asked, "What's going on and how did we get here?" Gaara walked over to him and said, "The dragons were relaying the battle to us once you started to fight, and Temari, Kushina, and Kurenai all were relaying it for us to know what was going on. When you were attacked by Pain, they told Kurenai here to throw the Hiraishin kunai you gave her and pulled you both here. Itachi is also safe as he flew away when you all disappeared in a yellow flash. I had my sand eye looking at the battle once we got underground." Naruto sighed and looked at his son and said, "You can release me now." Arashi smiled and punched his father in the face and said, "What the hell were you thinking, Dad? You almost SD," as he crossed his arms. Kurenai, who had tears in her eyes, said, "Are you trying to make me a widow before we even get married?" as she cried into his arm. Temari punched him and said, "I can't believe I love an idiot like you," as she looked away trying to hide her worry. Naruto sighed and said, "But we were able to buy you all time to escape. Speaking of, shouldn't we be leaving?" Gaara said, "No, not yet. I have one more surprise for those rain nins," as he kept both his eyes closed. Up on the surface, Pain was walking through the village and asked, "So has anyone found anyone?" A Junin said, "No. It's like they all disappeared." Pain narrowed his eyes and said, "I want everyone to start searching for anything of value as well as any hidden traps." Suddenly a huge arm of sand shot out of the ground near the middle of the village and into the air, and then it came crashing down on a building right in the middle of the village. A few miles away from Suna, a huge mushroom of fire came out of the walls of where the village of Suna was. All the Akatsuki members awoke and looked around, and Madara said, "Who would have thought they would blow the entire village up to keep us from getting it," as he looked at the fireball slowly fade away. Underground in the cave the entire cavern shook and people were screaming, and Gaara released a lot of ki to make everyone freeze, and he said, "Now we can go." The army has been destroyed, but our home village was destroyed in the attack to keep them from having it. Now let's go to Konoha. As he began to walk away, the people all looked down and shocked by what they just heard and began to follow Gaara, though they were all upset. The group from Konoha turned and started to leave, and Arashi got off his dead body and started to walk away, and he said, guys, can someone set me free? Minato sweet dropped and walked over to his son and cut him free from the vines, and Naruto said, that was not what I was expecting Gaara to do, as he got up. Naruto looked around and saw how sad everyone was and how Gaara looked down as well, only leading them slowly, and said, attention people of Suna, getting everyone's attention. Naruto said, I know you don't want to think about this right now, but look around you. See the faces of your fellow villagers. You all feel a great loss for what happened, but at least you're alive to feel the loss. What is more important? A few buildings and items that might be able to be replaced, or the fact you can see the faces of your children another day, or the people you grew up with to help support you through the tough times? Would you rather be up there watching your friends and family, or would you rather have them with you and start a new life together? I know it's tough, and your new Kazekage has made a tough decision that you probably all hate, but think about it. They forced you from your home. Nothing we could have done would have changed that, since we were caught unprepared as we were, but now they lost all those ninja we kept delaying them, so you all can escape as well as those caught in the blast and won't get anything out of it. I live by a nindo that I believe is something you all should learn and live by. Protect what is most precious to you. Only then will you find true strength. You all are protecting each other now, and together you will all be stronger for it. As he turned and walked up to Gaara and said, let's go, brother. As they started to walk down the tunnel toward where they would eventually get out. Everyone looked down thinking about what Naruto said, and a civilian said, H is right, those bastards may have got us down right now, but we can someday come back and rebuild our village because we are alive, and we may even make a new stronger village. For that I support our new Kazekage, getting a few people to agree. The Hokage said, the Sandaime Hokage of Konoha hereby offer an official notice to allow the people of Suna to join Konoha until either you are able to build a new village, restore your old one, or whatever you chose. You can even join Konoha if you wish. I believe that we should unite our people together in these troublesome times and support each other so our spirit will never fall. Kushina stood up and said, I am Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze, the Kyuubi Raisenkage of Whirlpool. The decision your Kazekage made was the same one I made during the last Great War. Now my people have started to reunite, and someday soon we shall make a new stronger village thanks to our ally Konoha and Suna, and we will aid you any way we can in your time of need. Naruto smiled and said, I, Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, the Kyuubi Raisenkage of Whirlpool, also offer the same deal the Hokage and my predecessor gave you. Together we will support and defend each other and prove why the land of fire, wind, and spiral will never fall. A few shouts of, let's hear it for the cages, or, you're right, let's show them what we're made of, and other voices of agreement echoed in the cave. Gaara smiled and said, people of Suna. You all know me as Gaara, son of the Yondaime Kazekage, but I will do everything in my power to protect each and every one of you because you are all what is precious to me. Now let's go and get out of these tunnels and bring forth a new day for our people, as he lead the way with new hope and pride in the people following him. Minato walked over to Naruto and said, that was good, son. You're a natural leader, as he walked up and grabbed his wife's hand. Naruto smiled and picked his son up, putting him on his shoulder, and walked over to Kurenai and Temari and put his arms around both women, following the crowd of nearly 400 people through the cave. 2 days later the people of Suna walked out of the cave, and Gaara saw the sun just rising and said, look my villagers and allies, as promised a new day is born for our village, as he smiled and led them toward Konoha. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.